Jordan 1s as a silhouette has always been driving hype towards it, basis the colorways and basis the stories that have been attached with that specific colorway because of Michael Jordan, of course. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Street Sense, and this is the seventh episode of our podcast, the Gabfest. Now, before we move towards our main topic and we talk about the drip of the day, I just want to, share this whole idea with you guys as to why we do this whole drip of the day thing and why I talk about what is it that I'm wearing today. So, if you guys know, we basically promote street culture as a whole, and I'm talking from the perspective of street sense. It's not just me. So, we promote street culture as a whole. It's not about one single style statement, a type of aesthetics, or this or that brand. So normally, what has been happening is, specifically in India, we start associating uh, streetwear or street culture as a whole with specific brands. So if it's supposed to be fast fashion brands, then it's going to be H&M's or Zara, or for that matter, if it's something hyped up, then we'll uh, relate streetwear with Off Whites or Supremes, or ASSCs also for that matter. So to genuinely get this out there straight, why we talk about this is, um if I got to make this like a dramatic thing, so then I would say street किसी brand की मोहताज नहीं है. So yeah, guys, but to be very honest, that's literally the case. Our culture is not at all dependent on any set of brands. It's a culture, it's something what you drive out of your inside, and this goes both the ways. It's not just about you got to wear brands, or you got to wear a set of brands, or you don't have to wear those brands still to be a part of it. You can wear anything and everything. It's about your personal aesthetics. So for example, what I'm wearing today is, so these shorts are actually from H&M, and this hoodie is from Hollister. Now, this brand specifically, Hollister, is never considered to do anything with street or with street culture, but it's a hoodie. Why am I rocking this? Personally speaking, why I like this is because this has like a denim feel to it, and the stuff is pretty cool, pretty chiller, and that's why I like it. Normally, wherever we go or whatever brands we scroll around with, be it fast fashion, be it hyped up things, we won't really find like this sort of a hoodie in a denim kind of a look and feel. So this is something that suits my aesthetic. This is something that I want to rock. So will I look after this thing that, okay, I gotta make this video, so I should not wear something which is Hollister? Of course not, man. Street as a culture is about your personal aesthetics, your personal interpretation of what you are and how you want to, be portrayed in front of whosoever you want to be. So in my case, this is something that I'm in front of a set of audience. As of now, I'm in front of a camera, so I'm completely fine with it. So we should never ever be dependent on any set of brands. You can come up with your own style, your own aesthetics, your own set of apparels to rock anywhere and everywhere from your current closet itself. Even if you are a person from the corporate world who have his closet full of formals, trust me, I'll tell you guys how to change the same set of clothes and make them look like something from the streets. And it's super easy. It's only and only about how you carry them, right? So that's that, guys. That's the only reason why we talk about drip of the day. And for the day, we've actually already talked about it while having this conversation. So let's quickly move forward towards the topic of the day, which is, are Air Jordan 1s dead? Why I'm talking about this is, of course, every now and then we always have this sort of a conversation or a debate wherein people ask or people say that, are Yeezys dead? And likewise, a same sort of a conversation has started revolving around Jordan 1s also. Why? Because there have been some huge drops happening specifically for the lows, right? And that's something what people have started relating to, the death of the hype of Jordan 1s, right? So I am over here to give I'm not saying that I'm gonna tell you guys whether they are dead or not, but I'm over here to give you guys a perspective as to what I personally feel and why the hype for Jordan 1s are is not dead. So yes, according to me, they are not dead. They will never be dead. That specific silhouette is something, just like all the other classic, and just the way I talked about Vans, our earth might die, but that silhouette and the demand of that silhouette would never die. Jordan 1s are that pair. So, first to get this thing clear out loud, according to me, why are we having so many low drops, as in the lows drops, is because there is already a set of hype that's attached to that specific silhouette, which is Air Jordan 1, right? And the name itself is such an iconic name that that's the biggest driving force for anyone to move towards this specific silhouette, right? So what basically happens is there is already a set audience for that silhouette. People already love that sneaker. So what Nike is doing is, Nike is basically cashing in all that hype, all that demand by releasing the lows and in bulk. And what is this actually doing is, it's not just uh, you know bringing more and more sneakerheads towards the sneaker, or the for the sneakerheads who have moved away from Jordan 1s back to them, but it's also bringing more and more common people also towards it who are probably not a part of this culture. Why? Because, okay, let's get this thing very clear. Highs as a silhouette, as a design, is not something that anyone and everyone can carry, right? And likewise, it's for the mids. But lows, only because they are lows, you can carry them anywhere and everywhere. You don't really have to think twice as to what's the sort of outfit you're wearing to rock those sneakers, right? Because they go with anything and everything. That's that. And for specifically sneakerheads per se, I would say what is this doing is, so for example, me, if even if I have say four pairs of highs and I have two pairs of lows, what will this do to me is, it will move me away from all the other GRs, say from you know from Pumas or Adidas or whatsoever. And because I love Jordan 1 so much, but of course, because there is a crazy hype with the highs and there is a different level of importance basically for the highs, I can't rock highs anywhere and everywhere. So whenever I feel like going wherever I want to, I can still rock Jordan 1s and not think twice before beating the hell out of them, because I'm not beating my highs, I'm beating the lows. And what is this doing is, this is in itself creating more and more demand for that specific silhouette. I personally don't know whether this is actually making sense for all you guys or not, but that's basically how it is. It's like running both the ways. There is a set hype and a set demand for Jordan 1s, which in ways they are cashing it in by releasing more and more lows. And looking at the other side, they are attracting more and more people towards their brand and towards that specific silhouette, because that's more of a universal silhouette. You don't really have to think twice before wearing it, right? So that's one way of seeing it. Second thing is that, so for example, if I'm not a sneakerhead and only because uh, I started wearing lows, that's when you start falling in love with that sneaker, right? So now, for that matter, if say I love that sneaker and I get two pairs of lows and I rock the hell out of them each and every place, And even if not each and every place, I at least realize that what's the sort of importance that specific pair has. So what will happen is, all of a sudden, if there is uh, a highs, if there are any highs dropping, they already have multiplied their market and their demand for the highs. How? By releasing more of lows and getting and attracting more and more people towards this whole culture. And I'm not just talking about the sneakers culture, I'm talking specifically about the culture that revolves around Jordan 1s only, right? So what they have done is they have attracted more people towards their culture, and now what will happen is they already have a multiplied demand for an upcoming sneaker for them, right? So probably the sort of PR that they have to do, or the type of uh, release newses that they have to do, they would be way more effective because now they have a larger audience base. And by larger, I mean by the number, it's more larger. This is somewhat like a similar sort of analogy as to what we basically discussed in our other episode, wherein we talked about a $200 sneaker versus a $2,000 sneaker. And we talked about how the hype that revolves around one specific colorway or one specific collaboration, how that basically drives uh, traffic and demand for their other respective colorways and silhouettes too. So it's likewise a situation, but it's more on an on ground level and more on the masses level. So when it's about collaborations and it's about more expensive pairs, the driving force are basically the sneakers community. And in this perspective, it's more of the regular people to come under the umbrella of Jordan 1s again. And not again, like even if it's for the very first time, they at least come under the roof so that they can target them even more in a more better way. So guys, this is basically a business level perspective to it, or a commerce perspective to it, as to what this whole thing and dropping multiple sets of sneakers of a similar silhouette, how this helps the brand as a whole. But if we talk on a perspective level and on a sneakerhead level, why do I not feel that the demand or the hype for highs are still not dead and they would never be, is because Jordan 1 as a silhouette is never really dependent upon any sort of a collaboration to catch hype for a specific sneaker. Jordan 1s as a silhouette has always been driving hype towards it, basis the colorways and basis the stories that have been attached with that specific colorway, because of Michael Jordan, of course, right? So it's always gonna be stories that are gonna revolve around Jordan 1s, and that's why people would invest more and more into that specific silhouette rather than any sort of a collaboration. So even for that matter, if we see as to the number of people or the revenue that the brand has been able to churn out of the classics and the retros, it's gonna be way higher than any other collaboration, right? And this is something that I'm talking with proper numbers. I don't want to use all those numbers, or else it's gonna like become like a very monotonous sort of a video. But that's a fact. The turnover that they churn out of retros is way higher than any other collaboration. We can take up Travis Scott's, we can take up Off Whites, or even for that matter, even if we take up the Dior ones. Why? $2,000 sneaker, only 2,000 pairs dropping. What's the turnover that's gonna happen? We all know. But retros, even if it's like a mass produced and not like a limited edition sort of a pair, it still gets the eventual turnover will be way more, right? Not just because of the production, but because the demand in itself is way too high. For me, probably the demand is not like super crazy for Dior J1s. Why? Because of the price point. Any which ways, 90% of the people know, and for because of accessibility also, 90% of the people already know that they can't access that specific sneaker. And two, it's just a new colorway and a designer label getting attached to it, right? Real sneakerheads would run after stories, right? I might catch a lot of hate for this, saying this, but that's actually the reality, guys, and we can't run away from it. So that's, according to me, that's one of the reasons why Jordan ones would never go out of trend or would never leave the space of being a hyped up sneaker, right? Of course, there are going to be phases as to, and for specific colorways, like for that matter, bloodlines and black satins did not catch a lot of hype and they were still sitting at shelves. And on the other hand, pine green lows sold out like within a few hours, right? So it's all about those sort of equations. Now, uh, just by taking an example, I'll explain you how and why this happens. So, and let's take up India only. So the thing is, in India, any which ways, we don't really get a lot of highs getting released, right? We don't really get a lot of highs over here, especially at retail, right? So in that case, uh, as soon as Nike announces that okay, bloodlines are dropping, right, or black satins are dropping, that those are like the first few high releases that happened, like officially, right? That's when, even though we know that there is not a lot of hype around that specific sneaker, but there is a crazy hype behind that whole silhouette only. All of us go bonkers for that colorway. All of us do that. Even I copped bloodlines, and low-key I feel that's like a dope colorway, especially for, like, to rock around wherever you feel like, right? I won't pick and choose that you should rock that specific sneaker around a specific set of places, but I low-key believe that that's a dope colorway, man. uh, so that's that. So the basic thing is there is a crazy hype for highs, and as soon as they release any sort of a colorway with it, there, each and everyone goes bonkers and they all hop into that colorway. That's the basic idea as to how Nike is strategizing the traffic diversion for their eventual drops and eventual silhouettes. So now, for that matter, they have, a lot of people have gotten used to wearing lows. Like, so for example, if I want my dad to get into this culture, I know he can't be wearing highs. So I legit copped him a pair of lows, Jordan 1 lows, and he loves it. So now basically what happens is, likewise, this is a sort of pair that we can just close our eyes, and even if we want to gift it to someone, we'll gift it to them. Now, because they are, all these people, are getting used to wearing Jordan 1s and are getting used to hearing more about it because they are wearing it. That's how they drive the traffic around, and that's what works for Nike, and it has been working for Nike. And likewise, because there have been so many crazy drops happening here and there, and so many, like in bulk, they have been happening, and still there are reports going on to the Nike headquarters there and then, that lows drop and they vanish within a day, right? So what is this doing is, this is one way for the brand to analyze and to realize basically as to how big of a market does India have by not investing so much and still increasing their sales, right? So this is one way of for the brand to realize as to how big of a market India holds, and basis, their R&D, of course, which on a brand level they do at a very deep level, but basis their specific R&D, what happens is, that's when they realize, okay, these are the sort of places, or these are the specific locations wherein there is a higher demand, or there are higher sales happening for a specific XYZ silhouette. That's where we should drop our eventual releases. And likewise, so these are basically ways for the brands to realize uh, how is a market, uh, what's the sort of a response a market is showing towards their silhouettes, their designs, their colorways, and blah blah blah. Just to pick up an example again for the same, and I'm gonna pick up Yeezy specifically. We're gonna have a proper elaborative video for Yeezys too. But just to pick up an example, I would say there have been crazy drops happening for Yeezy 350 V2 specifically, right? And everyone is like, most of us, if on a logical perspective we say that they're like, okay, fine, if I'm not able to cop this colorway because it got sold out, let me not spend money on resale and just wait for another 2 months or 3 months so that I can get my hands on the next upcoming colorway. That's how people go about it. But all of a sudden, what Adidas does in between is, so there are all these crazy drops happening and a lot of pairs getting dropped, but in between they drop the blacks, and blacks, I guess, were at their Promenade store there were only 30 odd pairs, and for that they had like a crazy lineup, crazy camping scene happening for an entire night. And likewise was a situation at Veg Non-Veg also, and at Super Kicks also, right? So there were very limited pairs that dropped for blacks. So what this did was, there was already a set market that they created for 350 V2s, and all of a sudden, as soon as they dropped uh, a more universal colorway, they dropped it in a limited sort of a situation. Which, what that did was, that created more hype for that specific sneaker. And likewise, what happened for this is, and this is something that I know, a lot of people were not uh, who actually wanted to buy the blacks because it was a universal colorway, where half of them were like not a part of this culture, but they just wanted to understand as to what Yeezys are all about and how do they feel once they wear it. But all those sort of people, say from the corporate world, or say from a different professional category, they would not invest on something like a desert sage, because that's a colorway that's not universal, and not everyone can rock that, right? So there are different strategies and different plans that each and every brand has. But so this was like a basic thing. So the way um, Adidas did with the blacks, by creating a market through their other drops, Nike is probably taking all those sort of chances with basically having like a mass drop of lows and their eventual and potential releases for all their highs, so that they already have a they have like multiplied audience and a multiplied traffic. So on that note, guys, just to add one little point, I would just say, had it been a situation wherein Jordan ones would have been dead, or say the hype around Jordan ones would have been dead, we would not have been seeing or experiencing this sort of a situation wherein people camped outside for a Jordan 1 drop for 35 to 40 hours straight, that too in winters, right? Obviously, anyone who's investing their time, effort, and money that much into a specific sneaker, they would only and only do it if there is any sort of a hype that revolves around that sneaker. And mind you guys, that was reverse breads. There was no label that was attached to it. There was no collaboration, no artist. It was only and only the story. And stories in our world are always gonna be the king. So I hope, guys, in ways I was able to explain you guys all this and give you my perspective towards it. And I hope, even if a little bit, this whole thing makes sense to all you guys. And if it actually did, make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe, and check out all our previous podcasts that we have dropped. There have been some crazy reviews that we've got from some amazing people from our culture, and that's how we actually get to know as to whatever we are doing is right or not, or what's the sort of improvement we need. So just be completely open about it. Talk to us. We are just a DM away. Give us our reviews, your criticism, and tell us what is it that you liked about us. Why? Because that's the biggest boost we get to work even more harder. Appreciation will always be the best return of our effort that we can probably expect, guys. So thank you so very much for showing all the love that you guys have been showing lately, since day one, actually, I would say. And we would keep putting in more and more content out there, and the next one happens to be tomorrow itself. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, like it, and you know the rest of it, man. Thanks a ton for tuning in. Good night. See you guys. Take care.